Very good. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to call this admin executive meeting to order at 3 p.m. Okay, committee and public comments. Do we have anybody in the public online with us? Any comments from the committee?
None for me.
Very good. Then we shall move on to item 3, discussion of Executive Order N, TAC 7, TAC 22. Don.
Yes. So where to begin with this? There was a call last week put on by DWR. I think I alluded to it in my weekly update. Something like at one point 560 participants on that call. In fact, they started the call. They must have had a limit on the Zoom because they got up to 300 and there were people in the waiting room they couldn't let in. So they had to regroup. It was supposed to start, I think, at 2 o'clock and ended up starting around 2:30. I had to go out, start a new Zoom meeting and let people in. In fact, the host had gotten out and he couldn't get back in. So anyway, as I mentioned in the update, I think there were more questions than answers. So a lot of questions people had, water agencies, some frustration about agencies that had taken actions to the prior drought to assure that they had sufficient water supplies and had actually instituted rates to support getting those resources in place, and the messaging that they face with their customers by saying, hey, we asked you for more money so we could assure that we had adequate supplies in coming years, and now we're asking you to cut back. So the messaging there, that was a concern. There was one, I believe it was banning. If the State Water Board recommends, which they probably will, level 2 of the water shortage contingency plan be instituted, Banning had drafted their water shortage contingency plan based on the premise that it was worst case scenario. So their level 2 is no new meters set and no new development. And the gentleman from Banning was lamenting the fact that if they're required to go to 2, they can't have any more customers, and their area seems to be growing. So the response from DWR was, we suggest you go back to your board and you amend your water shortage contingency plan.
Okay.
So a lot of comments like that and concerns about the messaging on this. The state board is supposed to come back. May 25th is the key date for them to come back with recommendations, and they are expected to include what was in the executive order. Those level 2 of your water storage contingency plan, the complete banning of non-essential turf, irrigating non-essential turf. There are some questions related to that because they are providing a exemption for keeping trees alive. So in other words, if you have non-essential turf, but it's essential to keeping trees alive, then there is a carve out for that apparently. And that remains obviously I don't know if that'll be in when it comes on the 25th or not, but I expect it would be. The other exemption is for safety and health. And the question was asked, well, if it's non-essential turf, what are the safety and health issues associated with non-essential turf? And that's probably a good question. They couldn't come up with an answer to that. I can't conceive of a health issue on turf. For example, McDonald's between the sidewalk and the playground area, they've got some turf there. It's just decorative. I don't know if there's a safety issue there, a health issue. I can't imagine there is one, but this is an example. But those are some examples of things that were brought up during that web meeting. Again, the 25th is the key date when the state board will come out with their recommendations, and we'll go from there.
Okay.
One interesting thing, takeaway from the meeting was that if I understood it right, the expectation is that especially we as water district will be required to contact our commercial and institutional customers about the non-essential turf banning of irrigation. Been talking with Ty and Jason about our capability with WaterSmart of sending out an email to them rather than sending letters out. So we're looking at that. But what was brought up was the fact that requiring a business, for example, to stop watering their decorative turf, it's obviously going to die, and you're affecting their property values. And the question was asked, who's going to give them compensation? There wasn't an answer for that. I don't know that they'd expect one, but the other interesting thing was that, again, my understanding of my takeaway was that the water districts are not responsible for enforcing it, which the state is responsible for enforcing it.
Interesting.
I don't know how that would work. And it raises, again, some credibility issues because let's use McDonald's and Burger King. Both of them have turf in front. Let's say that McDonald's decides that they're going to comply and not water, but Burger King thumbs their nose and says, well, we're going to continue to water. There seems to be a credibility issue there. And how do you address that? Where if we're not allowed, if we're not expected to enforce it, what's to prevent those that are trying to comply to just not complying?
Right.
So we'll have to see what they come out with, but I would think, I talked about this a little bit with Ty, I think it was, that our ordinance 103 allows for progressive steps for violations. I would have to think that we would continue with ordinance 103, that procedure where if we find a violation, that again, we give them a warning, and then you give them a notice of the ordinance, whatever, and the third step is the $50 fine and the $250 fine, and you shut them off. I almost think you have to enforce it, otherwise.
So the state says they're going to enforce that rule, not the water district.
That's what I heard on the webinar, yeah.
Then the simplest solution, if it doesn't change, is that the state can enforce that rule. I would not involve the water district in enforcement unless the state told us that was our job.
But yet,
To notify them when there are violators.
yeah, I was going to say, yet we are required to comply with the executive order, which means that we have to contact our customers and advise them that they cannot water non-essential turf.
That's fine. But I don't think we're responsible for fining them, are we?
Not my understanding from the webinar, that falls on the state, but I don't know how that's going to work. How does, I
Then
don't,
let's let them tell us how that's supposed to work. That's interesting.
it is.
If there's an impact on our staff for enforcement, there ought to be who's
Compensate
going
us
to
for
pay
that.
for it, right?
Well, I think I'm sorry, please go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say to that point, I mean, if these businesses and institutions do comply, and that would include, I mean, there's schools that have areas where the students play, but there's also some turf that is not really used. So it's going to affect schools, college, I'm sure has plenty of turf up there that they're not using.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so again, and then once you stop watering that, it's dead. It's very unlikely you're going to bring it back after a season of not watering it.
Tis the season. It'll be
If it does, it'll be weeds, I'm sure.
weeds and hard pan by that
Yeah.
time, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Interesting. So they're gonna, the finalized information is coming out
the
month?
the executive order directs the State Water Board to come back with recommendations on May 25th
May
to
25th.
include what was included in the executive order, which was defining the non-essential turf, how that's going to, any exemptions to that,
Right.
whether or not you're going to require water agencies to go to level 2 of their water shortage contingency plan. Basically come back with the recommendations that were suggested in the executive order and anything else that the state board deems appropriate.
Just to make sure I understand this, the definition of non-essential turf is rather nebulous. Anybody with a good lawyer could find that their turf was essential.
Well, again, exemptions would be for ballparks, soccer fields, those sorts of things. Turf that's used for community events like Freedom Park, for example, at City Hall, that would be exempt. And then, of course, the exemption for if you have a tree in the middle of it and you have to keep that tree alive.
Okay.
So there may be a lot of people planting trees in the next month or so.
Interesting. Well, it sounds like they're using this as an opportunity to try to eliminate private turf.
This does not apply,
incentivize that.
yeah, just to be clear, this does not apply to residential,
It's just businesses.
just commercial and institutional, not to private residences.
Okay, all right, thank you. Was there
And I'm
anything
not
else?
sure that there's an uncertainty whether or not this applies to, for example, homeowners associations,
Okay,
apartments, that sort of thing.
we have one in town.
I guess
that
our
would be
questions will be answered later
unhappy.
this month, hopefully.
All right,
Or
good.
or it may generate more questions.
I'm sure both will happen. Thank you with that. Any questions from the committee? Is there anybody online that might ask a question or have a comment? All right, thank you. So we're gonna go on to Dawn's favorite ones, Senate Bill 606 and 1668.
Yes, and we have this on there every month, as you know, just for any updates. And this last month, I haven't seen anything once again.
Okay.
I think the focus has been, when the executive order came out, everybody's focusing on that. I do note that the outdoor component is supposed to be released by July 1st, I believe, end of June, July 1st. So we're coming up on that. But yet I haven't seen anything, haven't received any emails or any communication as to where we stand with that.
They're already behind schedule on releasing that, are they not?
So it seems, yes. Like I said, Aqua had been really had regular meetings with water use efficiency groups and web meetings and such, and we haven't had any in this month or last month. As I said, I haven't seen anything come through with any updates on the standing of this. The last information we had was that Senate bill by Hertzberg, which was modifying the indoor targets, and they had come to a compromise on that from 55, I think, to 47 to 42. And that was supposed to go to one of the Senate committees on the 18th, and I've tried to look on the internet to see what the result was. I haven't found anything, whether they approved that as the targets or not.
It's roughly what, half of our winter use per customer in here, and we do a pretty good job of conserving. And it's what, a third or a quarter of our summer use? So, no word yet on exemptions for swamp coolers or things of that.
Nothing on that at all, no.
People in other areas use a lot more water than that. It's going to be interesting to see how they're going to shoehorn that. I will take the blame for this being on the monthly agenda because I asked to have it put on there because I find it's, people are going to be shocked when it finally gets into place and they get everything going. They're going to absolutely be horrified when they try to keep themselves to 55 gallons, let alone 42. So I apologize for making you report on this every month, but I thank you for your due diligence.
And hopefully we have something to report next month.
Yeah, hopefully they've abandoned it. Any questions on this one from the committee?
No.
Mr. Vice President, no? Anyway, Chris, anybody online who wants to make a comment? No? Anybody in the back of the room wearing, no? Okay, good. Wearing Orteglo orange? All right, let's move on to 5, draft agenda for regular board meeting. Did you get responses from the other directors? No?
No.
Other than read and enjoyed, but no comment? Okay. Did you get any requests for modifications? And I looked at this at home, I didn't see anything. Is it anything on here you want to bring to our attention? Because when I saw it at home, it looked
No,
reasonable
just,
to me.
there are a couple of action items this month from the Plant and Equipment Committee, B1 and B2.
Yeah,
And then we've added item C. Director Atora has been advocating for the Groundwater Authority to be more proactive in presenting the annual report to the board and having the GA board approve it. So that's on there. Other than
Right.
that, nothing. I will note item F3, the board workshop. So we did take a few items off of that based on discussion with legal counsel that those items shouldn't be discussed in open session at this point
All right.
due to litigation.
B2 addresses the policy update that we got briefed last month.
B2?
Yeah.
Yes.
so you'll be briefing that to the board and,
And I will forewarn you that June's agenda will be quite long.
oh dear.
There will be a presentation on the financial analysis that Mark Hildebrand has done. The budget will be brought to the board, the general plan, the Junior Associate Board Member Program. CSDA will likely have a representative here presenting us with the Certificate of Transparency Excellence.
And we were chatting yesterday, we expect that most of those chairs are gonna be full.
Interesting.
Lots of questions about the rates.
I will be attending a wedding on that.
Oh, you will?
It's
Yes,
good
so
timing.
It's excellent timing, Mr. Vice President. So I will need you to stand in for that meeting.
Should be able to.
All right, thank you. I should try not to look too happy about that. It sounds like a good meeting. I hate to miss it. I really do. And I already have a +1, but thank you for the asking. Was there anything else? Do you have any questions?
I don't.
No, nothing on? All right,
It's good.
okay, I'm fine with that. Any comments from the committee? Public? Dayglow Orange? No? Just trying to bring everybody to the meeting. Item 6, future agenda items. Does anybody have a future item on the agenda? You look like you do, no?
Well,
You're on the seat? You're on the edge?
I'm on the edge. I'm not sure if it's appropriate at this point or just talk about after you
Okay,
adjourn.
all right.
It's related, but not to this committee.
Okay. Don, anything?
Nothing, sir.
All right, okay. Comments from the committee? Ray, anything you
Last
want
chance.
added? No? Okay. Anything, no? You sure? All right, Chris, you? Okay, very good. Then let's go ahead and adjourn this meeting at 3:17 PM. Thank you.